And hello, everyone, and welcome to our March episode. We not only celebrate St. Patrick's Day on the month of March, but it's also Irish American Heritage Month. And here at the IGSI, we're going to be celebrating Irish Heritage Day on March 11th. You'll be able to see the event in person and online. We'll give you all the details and how you can sign up for that. We have an episode, an Irish History Minute, kind of an interesting one as well on voting. And then we'll also have an episode on the Irish harp and the history behind it. Plus, there's a book out, new one by an author. We talked to him as well about his book on Irish land records and how you can understand what they are. Let's get right to it. Our Irish Saturday for the month of March will be held on March 8th. So stop on by the Hoffman Research Library, which is located at the Minnesota Genealogy Center in Mendota Heights, Minnesota. Now here's an opportunity to get some of your Irish research questions answered. The Minnesota Genealogy Center is located at 1385 Mendota Heights Road, Suite 100. You can also stop by the library during regular business hours. And to find out more about the library and hours of operation, go to the website at mngs.org. There will also be a special day for researching Irish collection on March the 10th. The research will be available at 10 a.m. until 6 p.m. And more information can be found on the IGSI's website at irishgenealogical.org. And we will be celebrating Irish Heritage Day 2025 with a day-long workshop available online and in person. That's going to be held on March 11th. This will be in conjunction with the Ulster Historical Foundation's March Lecture Tour, featuring Fintan Mullen and Gillian Hunt. This will be both an in-person and online event. A wide range of topics will make up the workshop. The live event will be held at the Lost Spur Event Center in Eagan, Minnesota. Personal consultations will be available at the Minnesota Genealogy Center the very next day on March the 12th. Registration for the events and the consultations is required, and you can find out more about the in-person, the online event, and the consultations, along with registration, at the website at irishgenealogical.org. The Irish or Celtic harp has been the symbol of Ireland for centuries. It dates back to the medieval days, and chieftains were known to travel with their harpers, and harpers studied the harp for years and were considered the center of Gaelic social life. Jeff Pokwat has been playing the harp for around 40 years. It has turned into a passion for him. He is especially fascinated with the Irish harp. He was first introduced to the harp at a craft festival and has been playing this particular harp ever since. This is a Brian Boru harp, very similar to what you see on display at Trinity College.
Well, one of the main things is the strings. Most harps are strung with gut. Nowadays, of course, nylon. Some of the old Welsh harps were horsehair. But the Irish harps were strung with bronze wire, sometimes even silver and gold wire. And they were played with a fingernail rather than the pads of the fingers. So it has a different sound, different technique of playing. And historians just raved about it over the centuries.
And that's what makes the Irish harp so unique, then?
Well, that's one of the uniquenesses, plus the genius and skill of the Irish people, of King John of England, and he traveled extensively in Ireland. And he said on musical instruments, the Irish are incomparably more skilled than any nation I've seen. And Sir Francis Bacon wrote, "No harp hath sound so melting and prolonged as the Irish harp." And one of the reasons is the strings, I'm sure, because the decay on a note is so slow. You actually have to learn to dampen the strings as you play so it doesn't get too garbled up. But it was just raved about over the centuries. And there is no comparison. I've owned different types of harps. I had a Gothic, I've had more modern folk harps with gut or nylon strings, and I've sold them. And now I have 4 different sizes of this type of an Irish harp.
Genealogist and author Andrew Kane has just published a new book called Townland Atlas of Ulster. This 523-page book helps the reader get a better understanding of land records, not only in Ulster, but throughout all of Ireland. I recently spoke to Andrew about his new book. He explained what readers and those interested in Irish land records can expect to find.
It starts off with a bit of an explanation of what a townland is, and how it fits into the general scheme of record keeping. It talks about how, going back, even I have an example in the book of land deeds from the 1100s, listing townlands, and you can see from the description that they cover the same area and the same size and so on as they are right up until today. So then we have mapping, then all the complete 9 counties of Ulster. Every townland is mapped in terms of what landed estate it was on and what parish it's in, all that kind of thing. And then finally, we have a lot of background indexes to show you how to use that information in your research and where to go for more details, that kind of thing.
And that's a good point, because a lot of people on this side of the pond have a difficult time understanding how land records work over there compared to what we go through here. So having something and an explanation as to why things are the way they are and the history behind it is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. What really I'm trying to address is as well the fact that townlands, as we know them now, have been in existence for hundreds at least of years, and that your experience living here now and saying, right, this townland covers this area, someone 800 years ago have understood that exact same, have that same understanding, and those boundaries will not in the main have changed. Some can have been split up into smaller units or joined together from larger units, but generally speaking, everywhere is in a townland, and those are pretty much immutable.
Would you say that the book is written in such a way that you don't have to have a knowledge of land records over there? You can sit down and be able to understand what is being written.
Yeah. I mean, that's the idea. The idea is to be able to take someone, either someone who knows what they are and is researching, or right down to the level of you have no idea what they are. It's just really to show you what they are, how they relate to each other, and where you look for information about them, and basically tells you what sort of information or what sort of records you're likely to be dealing with, and how to use your knowledge of townlands from the book for that.
Mm-hmm. Was this an easy book to write, or a difficult book? How would you pose this as far as getting the point across?
To get the easiest way to get the point across is that it's 8 years since I published my last book, so there's been an awful lot of research gone into it. There are over 16,000 individual townlands in Ulster. Mm-hmm. So to be able to map those all, and then to get together, the actual mapping part was was kind of easy and most fun. It's kind of like the maps are all hand drawn and colored by myself. And that was kind of just really to give people a visual impression of how estates and parishes and so on worked, but down to a townland level, which is how our ancestors would have understood those, rather than doing street addresses or anything like that. Also, political boundaries and so on can change, but these don't. They're just
They've been this way for hundreds of years, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the political units are made up from them. Rather, that's how they would define, sort of a borough or so on, or a district, local government district, or a electoral district or whatever, will be made up of a number of townlands, and those boundaries will be used for that.
And would you say this could also apply to not just Ulster, but also the rest of the island as well?
Yeah. The system applies over the whole island. So there's 64 something thousand townlands across the island of Ireland.
So when I open up the book, what can I first expect to see?
I would say the color maps are really the most striking visual part of the book. What perhaps takes up most pages is the actual index of the 16,000 townlands. My actual index is 280 pages long, because I have a single line on a page for every single townland, giving various details about it. Things like how you would find it on an Ordnance Survey map, or what registration district it's in to find birth, marriages and deaths, what Church of Ireland parish it's in, what Roman Catholic parish it's in, who the landlord is, based on two particularly key dates. And then there's further details. You can then look at those estates separately and get the fill-in detail. We'll also give you things like, give you the details of what probate district it's in. So if you're looking for wills, just all the information that you could possibly want about that townland, so that whenever you go to other records, if you have in your family history the name of a town, it's most likely that you would have carried the name of a townland. It's kind of where you would have come from. And a lot of people that you do research for, they have this knowledge of this word in the background. They don't really know what it is or where it is. But if you can actually work out what the modern day spelling of that word is, then it really takes you absolutely to the core of your research, and all your information will be tied to that. To convey how in Ireland we really have, or have had, until this generation, a very, very close tie to our townlands. They're absolutely fundamental to people's, I suppose, identity, in a way that it's quite hard to understand elsewhere. Everything in your life would be dictated by the townland you lived in, and because every other unit, church, state, social, market forces, whatever, all those things will be related to your townland and be specific to your townland. And because it's so small, people living here can know it intimately. I mean, it could be from 10 acres to 1,000, but it's more likely to be in a couple of 100 acres range. So it's a small area to get to know, and you really have a connection to people for hundreds of years who knew that same patch of ground and knew what you were talking about.
Would you say that as far as people who are just learning now, that understanding how this all works over there, somebody who's just kind of getting started can pick things up enough to be able to understand how to find their ancestors and how to get down to townlands and parishes and things like that?
Yeah, well, I suppose what I would say is start with the smallest name, rather than people who emigrate would tend to say, yeah, our family came from, and quite often in records, they'll put down the port they've left from. or something like that, something very vague. You may not even get a county, but people will know we sailed from Londonderry or whatever, but they've no idea whether they came from the county or even whether that was just where they were passing through. So it's trying to find that connection to a very specific place. And because records have been organized on that basis for so long, you can look at whenever we do, by the time you do get to having comprehensive records that still exist, censuses, land records, and so on, you can then look at the family names associated with a particular area. People, although there was movement, family names then tended to survive in a particular place. And you can use that information to find where your family is likely to have come from, and then looking at those records to see if you can tie it into your actual family line. I always recommend anyone doing any research going back from the first quarter of the 19th century. So that's basically anything before the tide lists in the 1820s, 1830s. I would look at every single document that you can find that mentions the name of the townland. If you have been able to identify it using those comprehensive records that exist from that period forward, then you just look at everything about it. And even if you don't actually find the name of your family or the name of a person in your family, you'll have learnt a great deal about their lives simply by reading those documents. And the chances are there will be tangential references to people who lived in the townland, and you could well find them in actual, in person rather than just background information. It's vital in your research.
Welcome to the Irish History Minute from the Irish Genealogical Society International. Our topic today is the right to vote in Ireland. Before the Anglo-Normans invaded Ireland, there was no centralized government, and voting as we know it today didn't exist. The first parliamentary meeting that was recorded took place in 1264, but the men who met at that time were not elected representatives. The House of Commons, an elected parliament, existed from 1297 until 1800. For centuries, that meant suffrage in Ireland existed, but it was highly restricted. In rural areas, it was restricted to men with a certain level and value of land. Beginning in 1703, Catholics in Ireland were increasingly disenfranchised as part of the penal laws punishing and restricting Catholics in various ways across the British Empire. In 1793, the restriction against Catholics voting was overturned, but the laws that required a certain level and value of land were still in place and kept the franchise out of reach for many Irishmen. This lack of representation was just one of many reasons for the rebellions against the British within Ireland. It was also one of the reasons why Irish people left Ireland prior to the famine, as they increasingly felt powerless in their own country. Women and their allies began the fight for suffrage around the same time women in other countries like the United States and Great Britain did, in the mid-1800s. They were unsuccessful for decades, as in those other countries. The push for home rule, along with all the typical reasons people in various countries opposed women's suffrage, had many in Ireland not taking women's suffrage seriously. In 1918, the passage of the Representation of the People Act for the United Kingdom gave men over 21, with no restrictions, and women over 30, with some restrictions, across all of Ireland, the right to vote. The December 1918 election was an important one in Ireland, with the electorate in Ireland having tripled due to the law change, and that was reflected in a seismic shift in power. Sinn Féin, the Nationalist Party, won almost 3/4 of the seats and reflected the rising tide of support for an independent Ireland among the new voters, particularly poor people and women. That election would start a domino effect that would lead to the Republic of Ireland. In 1935, the laws around suffrage changed again, finally allowing equal suffrage for all over the age of 21 within Ireland. This was further protected in Ireland through the adoption of the Constitution and the formation of the Republic of Ireland. In 1972, the voting age was reduced to 18, and in 2006, the newest change in suffrage happened as prisoners were given access to the vote. That's our Irish History Minute on suffrage in Ireland. If you liked this video, remember to check back next month for our next video on the history of Irish graveyards.
And that's our episode for the month of March. I want to wish you all a happy St. Patrick's Day on March the 17th. I also want to wish you all a happy Irish American Heritage Month as well. And if you're going to be in Minneapolis, don't forget to sign up for the Irish Heritage Day on March 11th. And you can also sign up for the online event too at irishgenealogical.org, and also sign up for the consultation on the 12th. I want to thank Janelle for the Irish History Minute. Looking forward to seeing that episode on the Irish graveyards next month. And also want to thank Jeff for his episode on the Irish harps, one of the things that I learned about the Irish harp I didn't know about. And I also want to thank Andrew Kane too, and his new book that's out there, and you'll be able to find that available on the website ulsterhistoricalfoundation.com. And for all those of us here, want to wish you all a happy month of March, and we look forward to seeing you again in the month of April. Are you a member of the IGSI? You're not, but you'd like to be? Here's all you have to do. Head to the website at irishgenealogical.org. There you'll find the join link on the left side of the page, and that's where you can sign up and become a member. You can also register for any of the webinars this year on the website as well. And as a member, you can also see past webinars from the previous year. And besides enjoying all the members' benefits, you can always sign in and go over many of the programs and services that the IGSI has to offer. And that would include viewing past webinars, surname interests, the e-newsletter. Would you like to be a volunteer at the IGSI? Here's all you have to do. Get on the website at irishgenealogical.org and scroll down to the volunteer link. There you can see all the options that are available to you. That would include helping out with the Irish Fest in Minnesota, or any of the social and educational programs, or you could even help out with the social media platforms and podcasts, or the SEPS magazine and Genealogist newsletter. Just click on the Volunteer Now link and sign up. For more information about the Irish Genealogical Society International, go to the website at irishgenealogical.org. And for questions regarding the podcast, send an email to podcast@irishgenealogical.org.